Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone, and this week I come to you with a very unique book, a rather unusual one, and by far one of my favorite titles for a book, Monsters and Magical Sticks, There's No Such Thing as Hypnosis by Dr. Steven Heller. Now, one thing that got me interested in hypnosis and, of course, neurolinguistic programming is Scott Adams, who's the great cartoonist who wrote Dilbert, but also predicted everything about our last presidential election 2 years at a time. He's actually a trained hypnotist. So I read this book to learn a little bit more about hypnosis, and I found it actually quite fascinating. There's some interesting tactics and tips here, although this is a book on clinical, for the use of hypnosis for clinical purposes. There are some tips here that you can translate into your sales and marketing endeavors, and let me give you one example. For individuals, one of the great neurolinguistic programming thought leaders who has passed on, Dr. Milton Erickson, believed that when people talk about things, we use metaphors when we describe things and we describe our emotions. And in those metaphors, they actually reveal a problem. And so the idea from the point of view of a hypnotist is that you want to use metaphors to also help that individual find a solution. So as marketers and salespeople, if we listen carefully to our prospects and our potential customers and the types of words and metaphors they use to express their problems, we can use words and metaphors to help them find the possible solution. And let me give you an example of this. Every person has a conscious output system, and we think that we all use the same one, but we don't. And there are three output systems that we use. Kinesthetic, meaning more movement oriented, auditory, and visual. Here in the United States, about 40% of the population is kinesthetic based, or that's the primary means of metaphors and language you use. The other 40% of the population is visual, and about 20% is auditory. So let me give you an example. You're speaking to a prospect, and they describe a problem, and they say something like this. If they're kinesthetic, it's, I just don't feel like I'm finding the right solution. I'm really having a problem wrestling this thing down. See the use of that kinesthetic language? Now, same prospect, but they use visual language for their conscious output. I'm just not seeing a solution here. I'm trying to get a clear picture in mind and see if there's light at the end of the tunnel. So that's a visual conscious output. And now for the auditory, it's, I just don't hear a solution here. All I'm hearing is problems, and I'm trying to listen for a clue to solve this, but it's just not hitting the right notes with me. So the key is, when it comes to hypnosis and putting into a hypnotic state, and more importantly, translating messages so that the person you're speaking to doesn't have to translate your metaphor into the metaphor that they prefer, is to listen to the words that they use and use those metaphors. So if it's somebody who's using kinesthetic metaphors most of the time in their language and their words, use those words. And if you want to take it a little bit further, especially for salespeople, if you're speaking to a physician, for example, if you're speaking to an orthopedic surgeon, a lot of them are into sports because of the nature of their job. So they use a lot of sports-related kinesthetic metaphors, like, we really gotta get this thing over the line. I'm trying to take this all the way through. Let's take this up for the easy lay-in. Use those same metaphors. And the result is that you'll end up with providing a better solution for them that not only will be better received, but it'll go through the mind with ease and smoothness. So that is the book of the week. Happy Wisdom Wednesday as always, and as always, I'll see you next week. Why are you always dancing in my videos? You're just trying to distract me.